Hi, welcome to Conversations from the Alcove. My name is Caridad Svich. I'm a playwright, and I'm also artistic director of the Alcove New Play Development Program at the Lucille Lortel Theater in New York City. If you haven't been to this series before, let me tell you a little bit about what it is. As you might guess, it is conversations. But what does that mean from the alcove and all that stuff? It's basically conversations with playwrights and theater makers about art, life, the craft, and the world, not necessarily in that order. I'm going to start with a brief audio description of myself before I introduce today's guest. So I am a fair-skinned person with brownish goldish hair. It's pulled up today in a little bun, but there's some little hairs dangling about. I have bangs, and they're on my forehead, obviously. I have brown eyes, and I'm wearing big tortoiseshell roundish glasses. They're perched on the tip of my nose, and I'm wearing red lipstick very defiantly. And today I'm wearing a rather colorful, I think, top. It's a black background full of flowers because spring is almost upon us, as it were, at the time of this. And so there are little flowers of different colors, yellow and pink and pastel blue and all the things. And I feel like they're dancing on my shirt. Behind me is a white background. It is actually real, not virtual. You'll see the outline of a lamp in a corner, sort of a standing lamp, black, if you're looking in that direction. That's a little bit about me and all the things. Today's guest, more importantly, is Brian James Polak, a wonderful, wonderful person of the theater and a wonderful writer whom I hope whose plays you'll read. Please read Brian's plays and produce them. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Brian as they describe themselves on their website. Born and raised in New Hampshire, that little chunk of a state shoved between Maine and Vermont. For the uninitiated, it's where aspiring presidential candidates come to campaign every 4 years. But who knows what will happen in the future? I grew up as a mediocre athlete, sitting on the football team's bench in the autumn and pole vaulting poorly on the track team in spring. Fast forward many years, lots of things happened. Comedy classes happened, became part of an improv company happened, started a theater company, all the things, and also moved to LA at some point in their life to earn an MFA from USC's School of Dramatic Arts. They also host, this is a little plug for the Subtext podcast. If you don't know the Subtext podcast, it is interviews with playwrights. Brian's been doing it for quite some time, first under a different auspices, but now under American Theater, TCG. Check it out. It is awesome. I've been on it, but that's not just why it's awesome. The plays that you might know or should know of Brian's are Welcome to Keene, New Hampshire, The Patient, Last to Die for a Lost Cause, Here Rests the Heart, The Gravediggers Union, and is currently writing, says here, let's see if that's true, Nashua, I hope I'm saying that right, play about a family that never was. I'm so fascinated by this. Hotel Hollywood, about the collusion between capitalism and homelessness in downtown LA. Big topic, want to talk about this, definitely. And The Meeting, about what artists might do in a fascist society where the arts have been banned. Also big topic, something I'm really deeply interested in. All the things. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Yay. As you know, for those of you who know, I always start the episode with the same question, which is, how is the climate crisis affecting your art practice?
Yeah, it can't not, right? I mean, it is the context of our lives. And if you're writing about anything that is set, presently, it is the context of the lives of the people we're writing about. Even if you're not writing about it, even if you don't believe you are actively engaging in this climate crisis, it doesn't matter because it's happening to us. It's changing everything. I just moved to Minneapolis last year, and I've been talking a lot to people who have lived here for many, many years, and we talk a lot about the weather here. And the climate crisis has changed the way winter exists now. We had a blizzard last night, and it was 50 degrees like 2 days ago, and it's going to be 50 degrees tomorrow. But here we are. Our biggest snowstorm of the season happened yesterday, last night, this night, like this morning, whatever. So it's like it's a constant thing that I think a lot of us, myself included, from time to time, try to pretend it doesn't exist. Like everything in life is great, everything's fine. Don't need to worry about what's happening, but it's happening.
Yeah, I hear you. Does it change what you write about, or the way you write about, or the way you write, like the form that your work takes?
I'm not sure. I think in some direct ways and a lot of indirect ways. For example, in the intro, you mentioned a play that I'm working on called Hotel Hollywood, which takes place in downtown Los Angeles, and the description says it's the intersection of capitalism and homelessness. However, it's capitalism and homelessness in the context of the climate crisis. Because the climate crisis plays a major role in that story, which the play is somewhat a satire, and there is to some degree some magical realism, but maybe not, because downtown Los Angeles becomes beachfront property in the play. And if you know the geography of LA, you know that downtown LA is not near the ocean, but you know what? It can be, and it might be.
Yeah.
And so in the indirect ways, like I think about the pressures on my characters very much, and the world we're all living in, and the world my characters are living in, through most if not all of my plays, is squeezing us tighter and tighter. Like life is harder and harder, and climate is part of that pressure exerted on us and them.
Yeah, absolutely. And who gets to think that they are privileged from it, and can seclude themselves from it, and who can't, right?
Mm.
As we know, poverty is a policy choice, and um, you know, but there are some people that are building bunkers and like doing things to think they think they'll be exempt from the climate crisis, when in fact they actually won't be, but they might last slightly longer. They so think, because they
Yeah,
have a lot of resources. Yeah,
yeah, sure, and enjoy that life.
right, right, right.
in
Uh,
your in your bunker.
In your bunker, yeah. I don't know if you. I'm not plugging this movie, but it's an interesting film. I don't know if you saw the Josh Oppenheimer did a movie called The End, which is about a
Mm.
family living in a bunker. So it's he made it last year. I mean, it was released last year. I don't know when they made it. They probably made it the year before or 2 years before, the way movies go. But it's a musical. It's a musical, and it's Josh's first fiction film, because he works in documentary prior to that, and so it's very complex, but it's about a sort of oil tycoon who, the world's falling apart, blah, 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 and so moves his entire family into this kind of like manufactured, it's a bunker, but they've kind of created sort of false life in there, and they have like, servants, I mean, it's all very surreal. And then there's the interruption of a character that comes from the outside, somebody who kind of has survived, who sort of enters that world, kind of experiences it. It's a fascinating film about privilege and about, um, mortality, obviously, and fear and doubt. And it's a very risky film in terms of the way the musical numbers function. And anyway, check it out, y'all, if you don't know about it. It's really it was a movie that kind of went under the radar, because it didn't get a lot of attention, but it's got Tilda Swinton in it and Michael Shannon,
Mm.
and it's really super. I've been thinking about it a lot. I think because it's a comedy, musical comedy, it sort of approaches the subject, I think, in an interesting way. So worth looking at. I also, as you were speaking, I was thinking about how when we make things change, and that sounds cryptic, so I will explain what I mean by that. Which is to say that I was writing a play recently, or I thought I was, that was set at the kind of beachfront. It was sort of like beachfront property kind of play. And then midway through the writing process, I went, wait a minute. this place wouldn't exist. Like, you know what I mean? I kind of
Mm.
stopped myself because I went like, actually, this is set in the past. I mean, if I'm going to write this play, it's set in the past, you know, and I was thinking about it as being in the present. So I had kind of like a crisis of conscience with the play, and I shelved it. And I don't usually do that, but I was like, I was far enough in that but not so far in that I could like run away from it. And I thought, you know, I think I'm going to shelve this one because actually, to rethink it the way I want to rethink it, I have to set it in the present, but it can't be that beachfront that I was thinking about. So,
Hmm.
but it's interesting because I may want to go back to it and kind of figure out my way in. But speaking of challenges and things, I was thinking about formal challenges you either give yourself or work with when you're making work.
Yeah, one of the big challenges I give myself is avoiding the use of technology in my plays. I try to, not that I believe my work needs to lack a shelf life and be relevant forever and ever and ever. Uh, but I like to see how stories can unfold without a reliance on cell phones and iPhones and computers, unless that technology is vital to the story itself. But in a lot of my plays, I'm writing very, you know, human to human interactions and conflicts in a space, in a like whether it's a room or whatever, or an undefined space. I like to focus on what's happening between or amongst the human characters there, and I'm not writing about human characters avoiding each other through the use of technology. So anyway, like for many of my plays, most of them, that's one of my big challenges. Another one that I've been thinking about a lot over the past couple years, and this goes back to, and this is not me kissing up to the host, but several years ago, I was running a theater at a community college outside of Chicago, and I produced Red Bike by the lovely Caridad Svich. And in the version that we produced, it was for three characters. And something that I thought was beautiful about that play was it could be three characters, it could be one character, it could be seven characters. And I use the word character very specifically because the folks who embody those characters could be a lot of different people across a lot of different spectrums, ages, genders, racially, ethnically, all of that. And I was really inspired by that. So I've had since then, and I think that was in 2018.
Mhm.
Since then, I have written 3 or 4 plays where that was my starting point. Was this play is about these characters, and the story is not about their identifying characteristics. The story is about who these characters are on the inside. And that's where I believe we are, you know, as humans connected to each other regardless of our identifying characteristics. So that's been a big challenge. And I've written a couple plays where, like one you mentioned in the introduction that I'm working on now is called The Meeting. And it's a near future America, but it's not named. America isn't named, but it's a near future America where 5 former theater makers gather a meeting because theater is banned. So what they do is they have a meeting and they invite people to their meeting. So the play doesn't have an audience; it has attendees to a meeting, and these 5 former theater makers conduct a meeting where they talk about the topics of today. And I wrote the characters out as a former playwright, a former director, a former stage manager, a former actor, a former composer, and anybody can be any of those characters, right? So part of the challenge and the fun for me is engaging when I write a play is engaging the multitude of folks who collaborate on taking a play into production. And I was thinking very specifically about how to engage the artistry of casting and as part of that collaboration, and how does that story change based on who embodies as actors these characters, and that's been a very fun a challenge for me. And it turns out it's not as much of a challenge as you think it is, right? If I'm not writing a play that is about gender, why do my characters need to be gendered, right?
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
example.
Yeah, and I think what complicates that is age, right? So I was working on a piece recently, and I've sort of been, except for rare occasions, I have been approaching the work as modular uh, for a number of years, and also in terms of who walks into the space, whether it be one or seven or three or four or five, or like the text can sort of be shared, all the things. But then I was doing this experiment, this recent piece where I haven't realized it yet, but on paper anyway, I want it to be, the characters are obviously adults, the figures in the piece that are referred to, and kind of, but I thought it might be really fun to have children play this. And so I have this note in the front of the play where I say that neither the children are present, or they're present, but they're lip syncing to adult voices. I was trying to sort of create scenarios that would be exciting, and then I shared it with a colleague, and they were terrified. They were like, "I can't direct children. Please stop." And I was just like, they're actors too.
Right,
But
right.
anyway, because it made me think about, like, age is also something that becomes an identifying characteristic of a character, and it kind of like arrests them in time. And it's something that I kind of hadn't really. It's not so radical, but I hadn't thought about it for a long time, about, like, when you see a play and people open the front or whatever, and it says, for people that read plays, and it on the front I'll say, like, character names, and they'll usually say, like, their age.
Mm-hmm.
In more conventional plays they'll say, like, 30s, 40s, 15, they're only 10, or whatever. And so I was thinking, oh, that means that anytime that play is done, it has to be that, like, those characters are fixed in time, chronological time, as we understand it. And I was like, no, I don't want that to happen. And I think what sort of liberated that for me was, like, seeing, for example, in college or even in high school, actors take on, like, parts that are not for them, like, in a sense, age-wise. And I'm thinking that's actually kind of interesting as a conceptual idea, right? And so, like, wanting to push that further. So, but my colleague was, like, freaking out when I mentioned this, because, like, don't cast children. I don't know how to work with them.
I literally just went through this about a year ago. I have a play called The Gravediggers Union that is written in this way, where it's open casting.
Right.
It's a workplace comedy that is set at a cemetery. So the ensemble are definitely on paper adults. You read them as adults. They have adult problems,
Right.
marriages, former marriages,
Mhm.
children, that kind of thing. And it got produced at Bates College in Maine last year. Kevin R. Freed directed it, and so it was undergrad performers. And this was the first performance of this play. Like, I had never seen it produced before. And, I went and I saw 3 or 4 performances of it. And I have to say, the actors might have been 19 years old or 20 years old, but the story is still the story, right?
Right.
They
Yeah.
like the interpersonal conflicts and dynamics and all of that still, made sense.
Yeah. And I think that it says something also about audiences willing to accept that, right? Like the audience takes the leap with you. They understand that that character is written as probably 40 or 30 or whatever, but they also understand that what they're seeing is somebody who's 19, right? And I think that's actually kind of beautiful, right? Like it's sort of a beautiful, I call that a positive cognitive dissonance for the audience to sort of hold on to. Um, I wanted to segue a little bit into, this class struggle. Use a very formal term. The class struggle is part of your work, a lot of your work. You write a lot about the haves and have-nots, especially the have-nots. And I wonder when that became central to your writing, if you think of it as central, and also how you approach it differently from play to play.
I do find it central to my writing, and this I became a writer in my early 30s, so I had already sort of, I wasn't fully formed as an adult, but I had grown up to an extent by that point. I had a childhood. I went through college. I went through the post college struggle of 20s to find myself, and I did that in the context of being relatively poor. Um, I grew up with the privilege of being a cisgendered white man, uh, not recognizing that that was a privilege at the time, but I didn't grow up with the privilege of having financial backing of and financial support and family money. Uh, and so I came to learn about the world through that particular struggle. So the starting point really was this is who I identify with and who I understand. So these are the folks I'm going to be writing about because this is like, we're taught early on when we start to write what you know, and you can apply that or dismiss that. And I don't even like hold on to that as like a hard and fast rule, but I heard that and I was just like, this is what I know. And I know the struggles that I had, and they were particular to me. Um, and so I've over the years as I've continued to write, I think a lot about financial privilege, and I think the person who coined the phrase "money can't buy you happiness" was trying to pay his workers a little pittance. I think it like that phrase. I don't know the origins of it, but it was probably a marketing strategy to not pay people, uh, because money might not directly buy you happiness, but happiness has a strong residual impact as a result of not having to worry about
Yes.
finances, because the ripple effect of worrying about finances touches every aspect of your life. And if you don't have a full-time job, then suddenly you can't have health care. You lose a full-time job, suddenly your health is a problem. If you don't have tens of thousands of dollars in the bank, then what do you do? If your house catches on fire and burns down, you may have insurance, but guess what? Your insurance is going to come in a year and a half, if at all. What are you doing in the meantime if you aren't financially secure? Anyway, that part I could go on and on and on about. Where it really codified in my brain was attending a new play festival several years ago. This is probably like 12 or 13 years ago. And I think there were maybe 5 plays in this festival, and 3 of them, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not that much. I think 3 of them were like lights up on a Manhattan high-rise apartment. And I'm just like, has nothing to do with New York or Manhattan, which I love, but I was just like another play where I need to like engage with the travails of folks who live in these luxurious high-rise apartments. So like that really, when I attended that festival, I was just like, this is not what I'm gonna write. I'm just not going to write about people. And it's not to devalue those stories. It's really a recognition that that's just not something I can authentically engage with and authentically write about. And being authentic in my writing is incredibly important to me.
Yeah, I have this joke that I sometimes tell. It's not a haha joke. It might be a haha joke depending on who you are, but about that kind of play, right? Lights up the amazing apartment. It's on stage, um, and I've often, and maybe I've written about it as well in an essay or something where I talked about like that it's presented that yes, you're engaging with characters of privilege, right? So economic privilege, right? Often, if that's the case, if that's what you're looking at. But also it's presented as aspirational for the audience. So if the audience is a have not, and they manage to afford a theater ticket, it's a whole other thing. They manage to afford a theater ticket and actually go and spend their time. There's something about like, oh, one day I could have that too. There's a kind of like vicarious, um, both vicarious, like literally vicariously living. You're
Mm-hmm.
experiencing a play about these people, so you're vicariously living that. But you're also kind of like, I wish I had that. I want that apartment. And so you often see that thing where people applaud a set, that lights up and it's like a glorious something, and people are like, yeah, I love it, beautiful. I want that apartment, right? So, and I think about that as a kind of it plays straight into what capitalism and obviously neoliberalism does, right? In terms of the mentality of like, um, if only you work hard, you'll have that too, but not really. But not really. Like behind that is this other thing, right? So, and I think that there's a complicity there in terms of theater's sort of relationship to that, with those kinds of stories that yes exist, but also I sometimes wonder about sometimes the proliferation of that. Slight sidebar to this is that I was teaching a playwriting class, and uh, a lot of my students were doing this. They were kind of like, it's set in a Manhattan high rise, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, why? Why
Mm.
are you doing that? And they're like, well, and they were getting it from episodic television. They were sort of like, well, I see a lot of shows, famous ones like Sex and the City and stuff, where that's the ideal, right? Like that's where it's said, or it's like a fabulous like soapy pulpy thriller, and maybe Nicole Kidman is in it, and they're walking through a luxurious apartment, and like they feel like, well, that's where stories happen, right? And so there's this thing that's enforced, right, from viewing work that teaches sometimes a writer that, oh, that other stuff you shouldn't be writing about, right? Like place set in other places, that's not real, unless it's traumatic, right? So I think it's just this complicated thing around how the class struggle manifests, um, even with the choice of like literally lights up, and what do you see, right? Which is like a very basic thing. What are you shining light on? Oh, this. Okay. And I have to admit that sometimes I am kind of drooling at the set and going, I love that. I want that place and I want that chair. Where did they get it? I want to know all about it,
Right.
right? So,
Yeah.
so there is that as well. But it's also the responsibility of theater, right, to think about like what other things we can show and why, and um, what is considered viable, and also what is considered beautiful. Because I think there's
Yes.
also this question of beauty that is part of what we do. And I think that sometimes that magnificent, whatever, sort of glamorous penthouse apartment, blah, blah, that's on stage. Oh, that's beautiful. But that other house that you're going to see in some other play, that's not so beautiful, right? Like there's a kind of a hierarchy of value, even just around like visual appeal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to highlight that. I don't know, you have thoughts in that direction if you wanted to amplify.
I just feel like there's beauty in so many living spaces, right? There's beauty in comfort, and I love the beauty of somebody's home that they live in. and I think about my own home that I live in right now, and how what I try to do is make it safe and warm in the winter and cool in the summer, and just like comfortable and a nice space to exist in. And there's a lot of beauty in that, and it's not clean every single day, right? Like lights up
Right.
on my apartment is going to be clean if people are coming over, but right now maybe not. But that's real, that's authentic, and that goes back to what I was saying before about like
Right.
I shy away from things that feel inauthentic in any sort of media that I consume. But anyway, this was about beauty, and I think there's just beauty in in comfort, in just seeing coziness and um, I don't know, joy and the places people live, because really that's the thing I don't see when it's lights up on a Manhattan high rise is joy. Like this doesn't seem like a joyful and comfortable place to be.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. It makes me think of did you ever see the wonderful Kelly Reichardt film, First Cow? Did you
Yes.
ever see First Cow? Which
Yeah.
part of that film, I mean, not all of it, but there's a section of it that's about the kind of making beautiful of this cabin that these two characters
Yep.
share.
Mm-hmm.
And I, when that happened in the movie, I was just like bawling my eyes out. I was just so, I was like, the flowers, to put it there.
I
And I was like,
know.
it's so beautiful. It's
I
just
know
like,
because that movie does such an incredible job of getting the viewer to see this world through those characters.
yeah.
I'm no longer viewing it as a person living in 2025 or 2024 when I watched it. I am with them seeing the space through their eyes.
Yeah, so mad love for Kelly's work. Why? This is a question I sometimes ask, but I know it can be fraught.
Sure.
Why theater?
Yeah. Well, I tried a lot of things, and um, I learned that I I'm good I can be kind of a chameleon in a lot of work environments, and I couldn't find any joy in my life. And so for me, why theater? It was a lot of trial and error. I wasn't introduced to it as a kid growing up. Um, it was one of those things where if you could sing, then you would do the theater in school, and I can't sing, so I wasn't sort of like a natural person to do performance. But I was named after football players, so football was what I tried to do when I was a young person. So it was like athletic stuff, and I wasn't any good at that, so that wasn't something that became like a career choice. So cut to graduating undergrad, not having any hobbies, not having any sort of like vocation or avocation. Uh, I really, at 22, just started my process of like, what is my life? And I got jobs, did fine in those jobs, got promotions, got better jobs, uh, but like was constantly seeking something. And through that, I found my way into an acting class because I was a little bit of an attention getter. So maybe like I need to be on stage, and that led to improv comedy and studying that and then performing that for a couple of years, where I was simultaneously developing a strong self awareness. So I was seeing that I loved doing this, and my best friends were in this with me. Like this was my circle. My friends weren't the people at my day job. My friends were the people who I was performing with, and I loved and adored them. Uh, but I don't belong on stage, and I just knew it. Um, it didn't stop me from continuing to perform for a while and start a theater company and then perform in some plays in this theater company. But I knew I was like, this isn't for me, but I didn't have anything else to replace it. Uh, so at some point, I started to meet some people who wrote, and I was like, oh, writing. I remember having like a journal when I was younger and writing poems for the girl I loved when I was 15, maybe I can write. Uh, and because I was working in theater, I was like performing. I was like, why not write theater? And when I got to that point where I was just like, maybe I should write theater and started to write plays, it became this combination of, oh, I can do it and I like it. And it was the first time those two things coalesced. Uh, and that whole journey of coming to that realization was like a decade of my life following undergrad, of just like bouncing around from jobs and bouncing around from creative projects and trying to figure out what my life is all about. And so I recently saw a meme online today, actually, that was all about like uh, something about it's never too late to start being a writer. You can start on a Friday. You can start on the last day of the month. You can start on the last day of the year. You can start right. You can start at the day you're retiring from your job. Like you can always start, and I really believe in that. As somebody who wishes I discovered it earlier, but am glad that I found it at all. You know.
Yeah, yeah. Is it the collaborative part of theater that you're attracted to, or I mean, because I know as a playwright, you spend a lot of time usually, depending on the kind of plays you write. But let's say they're plays of some kind. They're usually alone a lot, staring at your laptop or your journal or however you do it. And so I wonder what if both of those things appeal to you, the kind of solitude of being the playwright, as well as the rehearsal process and then being with the people and doing all the things.
Yeah, the rehearsal process and the collaboration is I for me like the carrot at the end of the stick. It's the like I love it so much. I love getting to the point where I am not alone in this anymore. Because I love writing. I love being by myself in writing, but I'm writing theater because I don't want to be stuck alone by myself, right? I could write novels or poems if that's what I really wanted, and I just love being around people, and it like my writing and my realization of the joy of collaboration kind of came at the same time because one of the very first things I wrote was a scene for this big collaborative project that I was doing with the theater company I was part of in Boston at the time. And this director, Sally Dennis, who was part of the theater company, had this idea to create this like massive collaboration where there was like 13 writers and a couple filmmakers and a cast of 6 actors and a live band and all and she assigned writing pieces to all these different people, and I was part of the ensemble, and my part was rather small because like I said before, I can't sing. So any songs that were happening in this show, which was kind of like a mashup, a pastiche of many things, I just wasn't in those scenes. So I went to Sally and I was just like, I feel like I'm the one ensemble member who's like left off stage. And so she was like, write something. And so I wrote a couple pieces that I also got to perform in. So I ended up having this sort of like magical experience where I was one of 13 writers, one of 6 actors, a producer on the on the show because I was part of the theater company, and it was like the most beautiful experience creatively that I've ever had, and it was purely because of the collaboration. Sure, I got to write a piece in it, and that was my first piece to ever be performed in front of people. But the play wasn't about my writing. My writing was a piece of it. So I was like, I've been chasing that kind of ever since. That collaboration, that feeling of joy to have created something with a bunch of other people is like, it's just the best feeling.
It is. It's really lovely. And of course, everybody's creativity, right, on the work, right? That's what's exciting. And if you're lucky enough to have more than one production of a show, you get to see different kind of creative people kind of engaging with material in different ways. And you're like, I never thought of that. That's awesome, right? Like, so it just opens up your mind in such a cool way. This is a slightly sideways kind of question, but I've been actually wanting to ask this of someone for a while, and I thought, oh, I think it feels like right now it's a good time to ask this, which is, have you ever written something like a play, since we're talking about plays, and then, and maybe it's been put on or it's had a reading or however it's sort of had a life, and then kind of overhauled it, like decided, you know what, I'm going to rethink this whole thing, and gone back at it again?
Yeah, more than once.
More than once.
More than once, and I'm probably about to embark on it again with another play. But my first full length play started off as a solo play, and it became like an emergency replacement for the production of the theater company I was part of in Boston, because the play that was being created from scratch was not working, and it fell apart. And I had written this roughly hour-long solo play for a single performer, and it was already sort of like packaged. There was an actor, there was a director, so we were just like, okay, we've already paid for the theater. We need to put something up. Let's just plug this in. And we plugged it in, and it wasn't good. It shouldn't have happened. And because of me. Like it wasn't anybody else's fault. It was really like, I didn't know how to be a playwright. I didn't know how to be part of a process. I didn't know how to be the playwright as part of the collaboration, because my only other experience before that was I was one of, so many, and I was really only responsible for a little piece of it. But this was like so I wasn't engaged in rehearsals. I didn't rewrite. I didn't realize. I just didn't know. Right? I was just so naive.
Yeah.
So the play just didn't really work. But what happened was it kind of became my proving ground for myself, where that experience happened. It wasn't good. I put it away. I started to develop more as a writer. I wrote some other things, and I'm very green with my writing. Like, I don't throw it away. I still think about it. Like, how do I repurpose this? How do I use it? How can it still have a life? Because it clearly meant something to me. I'm trying to say something with the play, and it also clearly had a meaning for me, which is why I wrote it in the first place. So those two things still exist, even if the thing I created doesn't really work. So this particular play, I came back to, and it went from a solo play to a solo play, but with a chorus. So I turned all the stage directions into dialogue, and put them in the mouths of a chorus, because I think I saw something with a chorus, and it was very inspiring to me. Because again, my brain's a sponge. I didn't study theater, so I'm reading everything for the first time. I'm experiencing everything for the first time. I'm seeing new works. I'm seeing play productions, which I didn't do a lot in my 20s. So I'm just like, I see that. That's great. How do I use that? And so that play ended up I put that away. I came back to it again. New characters emerged. So suddenly now it's like a central character, but with an ensemble of characters and a chorus of whatever. The chorus still existed. So it went through 3 or 4 iterations. And what is great about it is that play got me my first sort of new play festival, as a full length play. and that was like that kind of recognition was like, oh wow, maybe I'm onto something. The New Play Festival didn't go well because the play just didn't it wasn't there yet. It wasn't ready for that festival, but it happened. And then I came back and I revised it again, and it became my grad school application play, and it got me into grad school. So, and that time period from when I first wrote the solo play to when I went into grad school was like, I don't know, 9 years, 8 years. So it was like I'd put it away for a year or two and come back and like reimagine it. Um, so it like it never got produced and it never had a full production. It's like beyond not ready or right for production, but it's like that's not that it turned out not to be the purpose of the play for me. It was for me to learn how to be a better playwright and to showcase what I can do and hope that people can see that I have potential. And that's what it eventually got me is into grad school. So I'm very appreciative of that play. It's called Underground.
Wow, I love this. This is like what a journey, and that doesn't always happen. And I love this thing of repurposing stuff. I used to feel guilty about that, because I think there's something in our industry that tells you shouldn't be doing that. And I'm just like, sometimes you just want to try it from a different angle, right? Like, and see what it does in this configuration. And it wasn't until I saw, it was way down the pike when I saw Chuck Mee play. And he does this in a couple where he kind of like repurposes a monologue from some other play and he puts it in that play and like, but it's recontextualized, right? Because it's just a new thing, right? And so that monologue that meant that when you saw that now means something different in this material. And I was like, oh my gosh, you can do that. This is awesome. And I haven't kind of done that exactly, but I've taken like nuggets of things and I've kind of repurposed them and kind of recontextualized them. And sometimes it's my own private joke as a writer,
Right, yeah.
but I love I sort of, it taught me something about seeing the me play where it was like, oh, it's just material. Do you know
Right.
what I mean? And you're just kind of accruing material and you can actually play with it like you were sampling yourself in different ways. And I thought that's actually very liberating. And it takes some of the preciousness off of it was only for that thing, and that's where it exists, and like, and sometimes that whatever that thing or that play maybe doesn't have like a future life or whatever, so you kind of feel like, oh, that material will never be seen and heard, and like, no, you can just use it, like, and you just take it and put it over there and like try it out and see what it does, right? So because it is just material. So anyway, I find that a very liberating thing, and I wish it was encouraged more, because I know that there tends to be this thing of like, well, there's this thing that happens with failure in playwriting, which is like, if that play didn't have like 1,000 productions or 5,000 readings or whatever it did, there's something in our industry that treats it like it's a failed thing, like it's sort of, and it's a no, it just may be that it didn't find the right people, or somebody didn't respond to it, or somebody didn't know how to read it properly, or like whatever. Like, it doesn't mean that it's the play's fault that
Right,
it
yeah.
didn't get all the whatever the carrots, um, but it still has intrinsic worth, right? As a text and as a project that was conceived. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Speaking of things that are inspiring, so sometimes I ask this question, which is two-part question, which is, what are your dreams for the field, but also what is inspiring you these days?
Hmm. I am an inspiration like junkie and collector. Uh, I just get so moved and inspired by some basic kind of what you just said. When I see something that has been created, my first impulse isn't to judge the value of it, like with a thumbs up, thumbs down. My first impulse is like, wow, is awe. It's like that was created. They did that. They made that play. Whatever, they wrote that song. That movie was made. Like whatever it is. And I write down notes to myself all the time in my phone. Like I use my phone a lot despite never using it in my writing. Uh, but like I'll see a photograph. One of my favorite things in the world is to walk around a museum. I am not informed about art, but I just love to take it all in. And I went to the Minneapolis Institute of Art for the third time. It's a free museum here in Minneapolis, and so I went for the third time about a month ago, and there's this painting there, and I can't remember the name of the painter, but I believe the name of the painting is something it's of Saint Peter, and it's sort of like the
Oh,
accusation of Saint Peter or something like that. Um, and the paint, the light, the way this is like a probably like a 1500s era painting,
oh,
and the way the light is painted, it is so beautiful. There's a candle. There's a in the painting, Saint Peter is wearing like a yellowish robe, and there's I believe a I'm not there's like a woman who's holding a candle and another man on her side who's reaching his arm in front of the candle to keep her from grabbing Peter. And so it's blocking the actual flame of the candle in this painting, but the light, all you see is the light from the candle, so you know there's a candle there, and it is so beautifully rendered in this painting that every time I see it, I just stand there in absolute awe. And that's the thing that I just like. I just love to do it. I went to the um, oh, what's the big museum in New York, the Met,
yeah.
uh, last summer, and I spent like 30 minutes just sitting in front of the giant like 40-foot Pollock painting that's on the wall. And I know nothing of him except for the movie that was made of him with Ed Harris years ago. So I know like his biographical details, but I don't know his art, and I don't know this era of art very well. But I know that when I sit in front of a Pollock or I sit in front of a Rothko, I just feel a lot of feelings. And so when I take these trips around museums, I start to just write down names of painters um, I love, and come home and then explore more of their work. Joan Miro is like the greatest painter I've ever seen. Like I just like, and I didn't know Miro's work, a decade ago. Um, so anyway, I all that is to say is like I just love to take things in, and everything inspires me. I've been listening to a lot of music by an artist named Bartees Strange lately, and his work is like he does a lot of cross-genre music, and he's been around for a few years, but he's new to me, and I'm just gobbling it up because I'm so moved by his ability to craft these wonderful songs across all of these genres. Um, so to connect that to the theater, um, in my collection of all of these things, um, I try to create works that have not just sort of like an emotional value for me or a story value, uh, uh, but an aesthetic value. How like I want this piece to be something that uh, has meaning on multiple levels and across spectrums. So going back to what we were saying before about the collaboration of it, I love my work, and this is something that again another thing that I partially have taken from experiencing many of your plays. Uh, I like to create works where there's space for all of the collaborators to bring themselves to it. So I wrote this script, but I did not create this production, right?
Right,
Um,
right.
so that's really, really important to me. I might write something that maybe needs to exist in a 40-seat black box, but I want it to be in this 40-seat black box with purpose. I want that to mean something, and I want there to be like an aesthetic value to every aspect of it, even if it's tiny. I still want the space to be intentional.
What a beautiful thing, and it's so nice to hear about your museum trips. I love this. It's sometimes I haven't done it in a while, but I might do it. I'm inspired by you, because I used to with my writing students. I would say, like, go to the museum, come back, tell me what you saw that struck you. Like, tell me what you stood in front of that, because sometimes I think there's this culture about museum going that's like dutiful. One thing. Two, sometimes it's like get through everything fast, so you don't really see anything. So I was like, just let yourself be attracted to something, right? Like that's what I tell students, and they'd come back and like make these things, these pieces, and inspired by what they'd seen. And I just never, it was like, wow, that one or that one, it wasn't like an assigned, like, everybody go see that painting or that sculpture, or like whatever. Like, it was like, just find something that you connect with, and let it kind of inform your sensibility somehow. So yay. I love all that. We're at time. So first of all, I just want to say thank you so much, Brian, for taking the time today. What a pleasure to speak with you. For those of you in the audience, please check out Brian's work. They're on New Play Exchange. So if you don't know about New Play Exchange, as a little shout out. It's a wonderful, the biggest digital library of new writing ever. It's online, it's subscription based, but it's a very affordable subscription. And sometimes if you're a student, the university might already subscribe to it, so you can access the material and you get to read and look at like amazing work that's being made, and sometimes way before it actually makes it to the stage. So check out Brian's page on that, check out their work. If this is your first time with the series, thank you for being here. Check out our back episodes, our future ones to come. If you've been to the series before, thanks for being a viewer, listener, however you're experiencing this. If you have been here before, then you know that I say goodbye and I hit end recording, but then I say a line a little bit after with our guests. So for you out there, so long. See you at the next Conversations with the Alcove.